So, what does trust look like to you? Is it a topic that you've explored before? I find that trust is one of these topics that we talk a lot about in relationships. Really, trust is like a foundation for any relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship or a relationship with a friend, a coworker, a company, or even family. Trust between uh, offspring and parents or between siblings. So it really is a relational term. And we know that trust is important to relationships, but really what is it? And what happens when it gets broken? That's what we're going to talk about today. So I've been doing this amazing 3-day retreat with Sage Levine, and it's a sales retreat. And I've had some pretty big awareness points that have come up for me about trust, and particularly trust in myself. I've realized that one of my kind of ways to get into the nitty-gritty of what I'm dealing with is to personify something. So if I'm working with my body, right, for example, I'll personify my body and kind of create this other character that's outside of myself. That way I can see the relationship between me and this other part of me. And I do it with a lot of different things. I guess it's just one of the fun things that I've figured out how to do, because I really find that when you look at relation and how you relate to things, then you can see a little bit more clearly than just like, oh, how do I treat myself, right? Because you're you, and sometimes it's hard to see you. So it's almost like becoming your own therapist or your own coach in a sense, where you're externalizing something so that way you can look at it. Sometimes things get caught in our head. So that's one of the things that I have done, which is personifying things. I did a wonderful personification of money yesterday, and that was really great. And so personifying the relationship with myself and asking the question about trust. What does trust look like in this relationship? I came to some big conclusions that really was kind of difficult to face, but it definitely led me down a path of exploring what it means to trust in myself and what happens when that trust is broken, and then what are the repercussions for that broken trust. So firstly, I want to talk about what is trust? And trust to me is really the foundation, the core of what holds a relationship together. It's what binds. I think about trust like the earth. I feel like trust is an earth element. It's like falls into the earth spectrum, because what is the quality of earth in terms of trust, right? We trust that when we wake up in the morning that we're not going to just float off into outer space because there's gravity, right? We trust that when we go to bed, same thing. We're not just going to float out of our bed in the middle of the night because gravity isn't there, right? We trust that when we take a step, that the floor will still be there when we take a step. We trust that the sun is going to come up in the morning and that the moon is going to come out at night. We trust that the seasons are going to change when it's the due time and that they ultimately do change. We trust that the tides are going to fall and they're going to rise. We trust that, that it's just like this feeling of safety and security. I don't run around worrying that the gravity is suddenly going to get turned off on Gaia, right? Do you? If you do, I'd love to hear about it. But there's this sense of security that I have knowing that the earth has me. That is what trust is. Trust feels like honesty. Trust feels like integrity. And when we're talking about relationships with people, right, it's about following through with the things that you say you're going to do, right? Oh, I wrote notes. Let me grab them because I want to make sure there were some really cool things I wrote down. But it's safety. It really is. Like when you get down to the nitty gritty of trust, what is it? It's a safe feeling. It's a feeling of I am held. And what happens when we have trust is something really magical. When we have trust, we are able to do things and explore things that maybe if we didn't have trust, we wouldn't be able to do. If you know anything about attachment theory, then you'll know that children, right, have different types of attachments. And when a child has a secure attachment to a parent or a caregiver, then they actually know that they have a home base. And as they go through their developmental stages, they feel comfortable to explore the world around them. Babies and toddlers will just explore their general vicinity, like right as they start crawling and walking. If they have a secure attachment with a parent or a caregiver, then they're going to feel safe to do that. When there's anxious attachments or avoidant attachments, then their behavior is going to be different. They're going to cling, and they're not going to feel safe to go explore a safe living room with toys and kids. If there is an avoidance, then they will behave differently. They won't try new things. They might ignore and maybe even lash out in anger to new things or new challenges. So this secure base is really the foundation for us taking risks and chances in our lives. It's interesting because if you apply this to self-trust, which I really kind of want to emphasize this here, is that there's this idea that if we don't have a safe base inside of us, then we don't feel comfortable to take those risks. We don't feel comfortable to make those decisions and those choices because we're anxious inside. What does anxiety and that kind of anxious attachment, what does that feel like? And what does that do to the body, right? We know that if a person is in a relationship with somebody else, like say, if a person is in a abusive relationship, a romantic relationship, like a domestic violence relationship, then they are in an anxious state. They do not feel safe in their life, right, in their world, to make decisions and make choices. They don't even feel safe for their own body. So what does that do to us, like physiologically? Well, it puts us in this like constant fight or flight response. It throws off our hormones. We have cortisol that's flooding our system, which cortisol is a good thing. It's not a bad hormone, but too much of it will wreak havoc on every single system of your body. It creates chronic inflammation. It creates hormonal imbalances. So, for women, that means, irregular cycles, painful periods, fibroids, endometriosis, all of these issues that we have. For men, that could mean testosterone irregularities, either too much testosterone or not enough testosterone, which affects your mood and libido and all of those things, right? And your ability to get things done. Excess cortisol, we've known that is connected to other chronic inflammation and autoimmune conditions, type 2 diabetes, even Alzheimer's. It's all kind of connected there. And we know that cortisol irritates the system. So if you're constantly flooded with cortisol, if you're constantly in this like unsafe state, even if it doesn't you're not aware of it all the time, but if it's inside your body and you don't realize it, then your body's still making those hormones and it's still reacting in a way. So if mistrust or not feeling safe inside your world causes these responses inside your body and then your inability to make decisions and make choices, then that's going to have vast repercussions throughout all of your life. it shows up in a lot of different ways, and we don't even realize it, that that's what it is. I really feel like this week I was like, I really got to the root of something here. It's really massive, and at least it was massive for me. And maybe, I hope that you're getting something from this too. But if you think about it, it's like, oh, for me, I have really been struggling with a lot of trust for the last several years. I had something massive happen to me. My and I became a single mom overnight and had no job and have no home, and I had to move a dozen times in a year and a half, and I had no secure base. My relationship had disappeared, and I didn't, I was betrayed by the person that was like my person. And so it was like my body and that trust that was broken between he and I, and then the trust in the universe, really, the trust in all of my life here was broken. And so then my self-esteem took a dive. My confidence took a dive. And now, because of that earthquake, right? Like trust being a earth thing, right? So it was like an earthquake. It was shattering, and it shook the foundation, shook the very core of me. And so now I'm walking around in this state of insecurity inside of myself, and it grew like these little tendrils throughout my whole life, and I didn't even realize what was happening. Some of the things that comes up when you have broken trust inside of yourself are going to be things like procrastination, inability to make decisions, or second guessing yourself all the time, feeling frozen or stuck, or not being able to decide which path to go. It can be, you can start seeing it as symptoms in your health, like your health declining. So that, I saw that in my own personal story. I was extremely fit. I was in the best health of my life. And then all of a sudden this thing happened and my health drastically declined because I stopped taking care of myself. I stopped doing the things that made me healthy. And so that had vast repercussions on that, over the long term here. It affected my career. It affected my business. Even though I was successful in graduating nursing school, I doubted myself the entire time. I doubted that I was going to be able to do it. And, I've had other things that have happened that have continued to perpetuate that story, that I don't trust myself. I don't trust myself to show up for people. It shows up in my parenting. And I don't trust myself to make decisions for my daughter, or that I don't trust the way that I'm parenting her is good enough, or is going to, help her turn out to be a decent person. That trust has shown up in my relationships, certainly in my relationships, and even, my relationship with Dan, my current relationship, where there's been a significant amount of insecurity and trust, and not because of him at all. It's all coming from inside of me. So if you're experiencing these like symptoms, right? The symptoms are the outside things. Then I encourage you, or I invite you to start looking at how you trust yourself. And do you trust yourself? Ask that question. Sit down with a pen and a journal, like I did. I found a notebook and sat down and I asked, why don't I trust myself? What is it that's happened that I don't trust me? Right? And if it helps, then kind of personify that other person. So it's like you and then yourself. I give myself a name, right? That's Veronica. So I'm talking to Veronica here, even though she is me, right? But it helps me to externalize that, so that way I can get to the root of the problem. The great thing is that trust, even when it's broken, can be rebuilt. If you've ever had a betrayal in a relationship or a friendship or in your life, then you know that building trust again takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of dedication and consistency. It takes an openness and a willingness to forgive, to not excuse, but to forgive, to let go of where we were and say, we're moving here now. We're heading this direction now. It takes a great deal of compassion. So I offer these, I kind of wrote the steps down, and that'll be like the last thing I'll talk about is building trust with yourself. And if you feel like this is really something that has been tough for you, then I encourage you to pick an area of your life to start building trust again. It literally does not matter which area. I find that working on your health is a good area to start because it's just you. You're the only person here that's involved in that. It's just you. So health is a really great place, especially if your health is really not where you want it to be. Start building trust again by performing actions and taking action on things that you say you're going to do, right? And then following through with that. So you have to give yourself opportunities to do that by giving yourself a goal. That's number one. You want to set a goal. And you need to start small. If self-trust is a really, really big issue for me, I'm not talking about like, oh yeah, I'm going to lose 30 pounds in 30 days. No. Do not do that to yourself. Start small. Start with one healthy habit. I have a list of healthy habits that is yours for free if you want it. Like seriously, comment healthy habits below and I will get it to you. But I like seriously, they're the simplest things. One thing. If you don't know where to start, then I will give you a list and you can pick one. And you just do that one habit. That's it, just that one. You're building trust one brick at a time. So you want to start with something small that you can achieve. So maybe, for example, it's drinking 8 ounces of water first thing in the morning for 2 weeks. Or 1 week, right? I don't know, pick one. Pick a timeline, pick a thing. And then when you do that, then what you're doing is now you are giving yourself that space to achieve, right? Once you get to the 2 weeks, you got to do the second part that is so important. You need to have a reward. You need to celebrate and recognize and take a minute and say, I did that. I am building trust and I said what I did what I said I was going to do. And celebrate. Maybe it's doing a dance. Maybe it's doing a shout out on, social media. Heck, send me a message and shout out. Okay, I will celebrate with you. I love happy dances, seriously. So if it's that, then celebrate. Celebrate the fact that you did it. It doesn't matter how small it is. That's not the point. What you're doing is you're recognizing that you are making an effort to rebuild trust. And that celebration is really, really important. It's key when you are doing goals. Or otherwise, you're just going to feel like it's for nothing. And you're not going to keep doing it. You're not going to keep taking care of yourself. You're not going to keep building that trust because there's no reward in it. And when you're doing self-improvement, you have to give yourself rewards. There's literally no one else that's like externally here is doing that. So you've got to do that. Thirdly, you want to have a support system. Get around people, good people who are supporting you. If you're in your health journey, then get a hold of an accountability group. I'm in an awesome one. If you want to come join mine. But it's seriously like you need to be around people. We are social creatures, and having an accountability group or a coach or a mentor, somebody who is going to hold you to what you say you're going to do is going to help you get to your goals. They're going to help you stick to it when things get tough, or give you, there to celebrate with you, or just like hold you to your word, because it's really easy for us to fall back into old habits. So get around good people, have an accountability group, Have an accountability partner. Have somebody there that's going to support you through this kind of rebuilding trust, because it gets really hard. It gets really hard in that space. Set yourself up for success with consistency. That kind of comes back to that one part where I said, start small, right? And attach it to something you're already doing. That is one way you can set yourself up for success. It's called habit stacking. So if you already are putting your slippers on first thing in the morning, then attach drinking that water with putting on your slippers. I drink 8 ounces of water and I put on my slippers. And you put those two things together, because you're already doing one thing, you're already putting on your slippers. So you attach one thing and then there you go. You've set yourself up for success. Create an environment that is supportive for you in your new habits, and you will find that it's easier to do. Number 5, give yourself compassion while you're doing this. Just like if you were building trust with a relationship, right? Maybe you messed up and you made a mistake and you're trying to rebuild trust with that partner. You hope that your partner can show you compassion. This is the same thing. When you're rebuilding self-trust, you have to give yourself compassion, because there are going to be setbacks. There are going to be times when it's hard. You have to give yourself some grace and love. You've got to do that. Without this becomes like a slave driver, and you don't want to be that kind of person to yourself. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes that from an external. So why would you do that to yourself? You're trying to rebuild trust. Come back to that why. Like, why are you doing this? You're trying to rebuild trust because you want to love yourself, because you want to grow, because you want to be a better person for the people and show up for the people in your life. You're doing this because it's essential for you to have that secure base inside of you. We're adults now. We don't have like a secure attachment to our parents anymore. We have to transfer that secure attachment into ourselves. And there have been so many things we have gone through that have broken that trust. And we haven't gone through this process of actually rebuilding the trust. And so it's showing up in our lives and it's wrecking our lives. So if there's anything that you do today, take a few minutes and think about, when did I stop trusting myself? How does that show up in my life? It might only be one area. It might be in every area. I mean, it happens. And I encourage you to take these steps and see how you can start improving that relationship with yourself. I promise you it'll be worth it. I love you. I hope you have an amazing day, and I can't wait to talk to you soon. Bye.